Hello, is this thing on?
Yes, it's all on.
Good. I just feel like Britney Spears. All the single ladies, all the single ladies.
Are you ready?
Of course.
Okay, please tell us about...
Wait, do I look at you or do I look at the camera?
You just look at me, act like the camera isn't
okay.
there. All right, please tell us about your experience with the Regal Mystery Movie on March 30th, 2026.
Okay, so I usually get to the movies pretty early, right? When I got there, it was about 6:25. And wait, was it actually 6:30? You know, I think it was 6:27. That's right. Because I was thinking, oh my God, like the kids always say, 6-7.
And the movie?
I'm getting there. Ugh. So I go inside and I buy my ticket, and there's only been 5 seats picked. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so great. Because I love when there's less people in there because I get to pick wherever I want to sit. And I always pick the same seat because it's the perfect seat for my vision. And also the surround sound always sounds the best right there.
That's great. How was the movie?
I'm getting there next. So I'm sitting in my seat doing my little social media post, Eleanor the Goddess Forever. And these 2 people come walking in, and they sit like kind of behind me, but a little bit over to the side. And then 2 more people come up, and they come up the stairs, and they stop right next to me, which is really rude, really hovering over top of me. And they look over at those 2, and they say, oh my God, somebody is sitting in the seats right next to ours. So they decide to go sit on the opposite side of the theater. So I do my little detective work, which I'm known to do on the Regal app, and sure enough, 4 seats in a row in the row behind me.
We kind of need to move
Anyway,
on.
one of those pairs decided to sit next to the other one. It's really kind of like a whole chicken and the egg situation. But what it did create was this chain reaction of people not sitting in the seats that they chose for themselves. Like, why would you pick a seat that you didn't want? And all this does is create a chain reaction of angry people because everybody's displaced from the seat they chose. I just don't get it because it's supposed to be a community activity and not a selfish one.
Hey, it's all right. How about we take a break for a bit? Then we can talk about the mystery movie, okay?
Yeah, that sounds nice. Do I take this off? No, I'll just keep it on. Okay, I'll be back.
All right, everyone, that's 5. Let's get these lights and cameras readjusted. And while that's happening, I will go ahead and actually talk about the Regal Mystery Movie Horror Edition that played on March 30th, 2026. And that movie was Hunting Matthew Nichols. 23 years after her brother mysteriously disappeared, a documentary filmmaker sets out to solve his missing persons case. But when a disturbing piece of evidence is revealed, she comes to believe that her brother might still be alive.
Rated R.
This is the 4th recent horror edition of the Mystery Movie series, and it actually has horror stuff in it. Huzzah! But it is limited to the last 10 minutes of the film. Everything before that is just a documentary film. This is a pretty interesting concept, but it wasn't balanced very well. The movie opens with Tara Nichols, who is being interviewed about her brother who went missing 20 years prior. The film follows her, a director, and a single cameraman as they go around and interview people who were connected to the case. There's not much in terms of revelations, though. Eventually, they discover a missing videotape, which leads them to the woods and the finale of the film. Hunting Matthew Nichols is a film that will inevitably be compared to other movies. The first being the Blair Witch Project from 1999. Now, I have not seen the Blair Witch Project. I know. I have never been a big fan of found footage films, even as a teen. I do own it on Blu-ray though, and I will watch it eventually, I promise. The other film is last year's Shelby Oaks by YouTuber Chris Stuckman. That film starts with a documentary style and follows a woman who is searching for her missing sister. Pretty similar. However, Hunting Matthew Nichols never drops that documentary style. Tara Nichols is played by Miranda McDougal. She gives an uneven performance. There were moments where I was invested in every word she was saying, and then there were other moments where I was chuckling at her strained delivery. There were times where she was trying to convey a type of emotion that wasn't supported by the scene or her castmates. It put a damper on the whole film. The director of the documentary about Tara's brother was played by Mark Ian Tarasuk. He is also the director of the actual film. So he's playing a fictionalized director version of himself in a movie that is also directed by himself. Unfortunately, this double duty was not a good idea. Similar to Tara, his character was uneven. There were times where you could feel his concern for Tara's safety, and other times he was just flat. The last member of the crew is a cameraman, Ryan, played by Ryan Alexander McDonald. He is also playing a fictionalized version of himself. He doesn't have as many lines as the other two because he's behind the camera, but the ones he does have suffer the same uneven fate. Noticing a trend yet? That's the whole theme for the movie. Unbalanced. The dialogue, the music, the tension, the horror. Some conversations sounded ad-libbed, and not well. There was one scene early in the film with the team setting up their headquarters in a hotel room. Tara suggests, "We should put the evidence on the bed." Then Mark Ian responds, "You should put the evidence on the bed." To which Tara responds, "Yeah, let's put the evidence on the bed." It was a super repetitive conversation that often happens with improvised dialogue. Actors will repeat each other's lines to simulate conversation. I'm not saying that this was the case, but it sounded like it. However, the conversations in the interviews were really good. In fact, I found the whole documentary style to be done really well. I think the characters who were being interviewed sounded more natural. I don't typically watch those true crime, missing person type of TV shows, but it felt authentic to me. There were even some reenactments and informational graphics. There were a few times where the camera angles didn't make any logistical sense. Like a super wide shot through a hotel window as Tara watched a video. Or when the trio is outside the car eating food on the hood while the camera is recording from the back seat. The main problem is it took way too long to move on from this. The movie is only an hour and a half long, but it spends 90% of that time setting things up. I think that's what made half of my audience leave early. It was like a PG-13 TV show. It wouldn't be such a bad thing if there was some kind of horror progress throughout. You know, like little breadcrumbs of spookiness so the audience can feel the tension building. Even when the aforementioned missing tape was found, the audience doesn't get to see it. We get to see Tara watch it, then we get to see Mark Ian and Ryan watch it, but we never get to see the screen. This was a bizarre creative choice. I get not wanting to show the audience the whole tape to keep some of that mystery alive, but not seeing any of it cut the horror and tension to almost nothing for me. This continues through the whole film until the last 10 minutes. This is when all the spookiness happens. While some of it was quite predictable, it was a refreshing change of pace. Albeit a little too late. This is also where my audience started to laugh at the imagery, which is not the reaction you want to have as a filmmaker. I found the finale well made and scary, just incomplete. Horror movies often leave something up to the imagination of the audience, but Hunting Matthew Nichols leaves it all up to you. There are some surface level details that are unsatisfying. The film has a nice score throughout. I enjoy the credit music quite a bit, but there were quite a few times where the music did not fit the scene, especially during the interviews. The lead detective will be discussing the search process, and then the orchestral swells would erupt and override all of her lines. Plus, the tone of the music didn't fit the scene at all. There were other times where the dialogue was just too soft. I actually had to cup my hand to my ear to try to hear it. I have already seen other reviews saying that this is a slow burn kind of film, but to me it was just slow. There was no sizzle until the last 10 minutes. The documentary follows the path you would expect. Interviews, travel. Interviews, discuss. Interviews, and travel some more. And it's just that, without any major reveals. The film leaps from the skillet directly into the fire for the finale. In the end, Hunting Matthew Nichols succeeds and fails at the same time. It succeeds at creating a faux documentary that is interesting, but fails at adding tension and spookiness throughout, instead opting to horror dump at the end. Now, this film was completed in 2024 and has been on the festival circuit since then, looking for backing for a wider release. After seeing it, I can understand why. And that is why I'm giving the Regal Mystery Movie Horror Edition Hunting Matthew Nichols the blurry camcorder score of 3.5 out of 10. While I appreciate there being actual horror elements, the rest of the film just feels ripped from TV. There was little build-up to keep the viewer engaged. In fact, the guy behind me fell asleep, snoring for 15 minutes before waking up and leaving. But what did you think about the mystery movie Hunting Matthew Nichols? Set up your tripod in the comments below and blog me all about it. If you haven't seen it, the movie will release on April 10th, 2026. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more witchy content just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the woods.